to me then, I bet they feel me now. Don't let me lose it. The booth not about to prove it. I set goals and pursue it. You the best to never do it. Invest my money talking fluent, stupid, ducking the Judas. It broke my heart, but open my eyes. You have no honor, I have no choice. Chasing the commas till I'm gone. I've been left for a minute. On my way home, mama, I promise, got caught up in it. Damn. Everybody eats when I'm batting at the plate. First, second, third, home, $1 million babe. Didn't listen to me then, I bet they feel me now. Don't let me lose it. The booth not about to prove it. I set goals and pursue it. You the best to never do it. Invest my money talking fluent, stupid, ducking the Judas. It broke my heart, but open my eyes. You have no honor, I have no choice. Chasing the commas till I'm gone. I've been left for a minute. On my way home, mama, I promise, got caught up in it. Damn. Everybody eats when I'm batting at the plate. First, second, third, home, $1 million babe.
What's up, people? Hotep Jesus. We back.
Hotep, you're a genius. HotepJesus.com.
What's up, people? What's up, people? I got a lovely guest for you today. A professional in his craft. Professional hypnotist. Andy Eversole. What up, bro?
What's going on, Mr. Hotep Jesus?
Yes, sir. In the flesh.
I love that intro, man. I was watching that show when Alex Jones said you were a genius. I was like, that's the biggest flex I've ever heard.
Yeah, you know, I got a few celebrities have called me genius over the past. Unfortunately, none of them have been recorded. So when that one happened, I said, oh, I need this one. So I had to get that sound bite.
Yeah, that's it, man.
Absolutely imperative. So you're aware right now. You said you're in the deepest parts of Mexico?
I'm in very South Mexico. Yeah, I was been in Mexico City for a few weeks, traveling around Mexico, finished my book, and now I'm just down at the beach relaxing for a few days.
You must be single.
Well, yeah, I'm single.
You lucky son of a bitch.
That's a pretty good life. They call it a buena vida here, the good life.
God damn you. So what brings you down to Mexico?
Well, I live in North Carolina, so I like to travel all sorts of different countries. I have a music project called Banjo Earth. I go to different countries and collaborate with musicians in each country, make an album and documentary. And so I've been to China, India, Brazil, Peru last year, and now I'm just sort of chilling in Mexico.
Is this like pre-planned, or you just pop up, find musicians and just wing it?
I go there and find musicians, yeah. So it's really organic. I walk around, I play in the streets, I search Instagram or some apps, and I use some dating sites to meet some people who introduce me to musicians and become travel companions.
Wait, how does that work?
I've got several methods.
How does that work? How does this whole Tinder to find a musician thing work? You like hitting on hot chicks, then you hang out with them and you're like, hey, do you know any musicians?
Yeah. So yeah, well, I go on a couple dates generally and find some really nice Latina girls, perhaps, if I'm in Mexico, and I tell them what I'm doing, playing music, and a lot of them like know where to go for the good music, and then we go, dancing, and then I find some musicians along the way.
So a little sidebar here. What is this relationship like between you and the Latinas? Are they looking at you like, oh, here's a gringo I can get rich off of? Or are they bamboozling you as much as you're bamboozling them? Or how does this relationship work?
Well, several of the girls that I've run into have a lot more money than I do.
Oh,
so
really?
They're not looking for my money, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
But I think a lot of them are in situations where they're not able to fully express their womanhood, and I think I maybe offer a bit of that freshness to living that way.
What do you mean they can't express their womanhood?
Well, South American countries in particular, also Asian countries, women grow up and live in a more conservative society, like with family and stuff. And a lot of times, there's arranged marriages in these places. And, You know, it's like, I think America culture and me as an American offer some sort of freedom. If it's, even if it's just a feeling.
Really?
Yeah. And so I think they really pick up on that energy and really enjoy that.
You see, when I think about Latinas, you know, La Familia wise, yeah, I can see some conservatism, but they sure as hell don't dress conservative. So, you know,
Yeah.
when you say conservative, in what way are they looking to, I guess, express themselves differently around you? Because their culture, you know, is very much like, you know, they show a lot of skin, they do a lot of dancing and twerking or whatever. So how is that different from?
I think that's more like the younger crowd.
Oh,
I'm the girls I'm kind of running into are in the, you know, the late 30s and around 40 age. So that's a different time.
Oh, you going after the older chicas?
Well, just whatever shows up, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm not actually like out like really hardcore looking for women, but
yeah,
it happens. You know, I talk to a lot of people when I travel. I try to be friendly and converse, and I try to, you know, talk to beautiful women when I see them. Or
yeah.
so, you know, it's more of like a organic thing. I'm not one of like the passport bros, you know. You've seen the passport bros, right?
I know you talking about. I haven't seen it, but I know
Yeah.
you talking about. That's the vibe I was getting. I thought you was out here like the passport bros.
No.
I'm sorry.
I'm just really exploring culture, and then that's just a part of what I come into, you know.
So how is I still don't understand how the culture's different. You know, like how do they feel more liberated with you? I guess maybe there's like a lack of judgment.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, lack of judgment. You know, I'm also an artist and a creative entrepreneur, so that's also probably something they don't run into a lot. You know, like someone just traveling and free to move about whenever and wherever. You know, I'm very interested in the music of each culture, and those kinds of people gravitate towards me.
Are you hypnotizing any of these chicks?
Sometimes they want me to hypnotize them, but they ask for it. I'm not just like
Right.
you know, doing it. It's like stealth hypnosis, you know. But yeah, that's also a very interesting thing for them, that they come across a hypnotist, and that's what I do for work.
Right.
You know, and they, of course, everyone is like, oh, that's so interesting. I want to do me, they say.
Give me one of these stories of where hypnotism has gone wrong.
Ooh. Well, it's never really like gone super wrong. So I'll draw a distinction between recreational hypnosis
Okay.
and professional hypnosis. So I do a lot of therapy work. And so in that setting, you know, people pay me money and I help them with whatever issue they want to help with. And so that's very, you know, strict as far as professionality goes, and me really trying to help them. And then there's the recreational hypnosis, where it's just me and whoever, like having fun and playing around, and that can be very interesting. And there's can be some definitely erotic elements to that.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me more. Keep going.
Well, have you ever seen a stage show?
No. What's that?
Like when someone, like a hypnotist, is on stage.
Oh yeah. Of course. Yeah.
And they get people up on stage. Yeah. And so, I mean, they give women orgasms. They, you know, like you can give a woman an orgasm by just talking to them. I don't know if you've ever.
I never seen that type of stage show.
You never seen that one? Well, you'll find a lot of that in Vegas.
Really?
But that's really an element, because orgasm comes from the mind. You know, when a woman, like, there's a lot of women that say they can't have orgasm, and it's because they're having an issue with the mind. It's not the body, you know. And so hypnosis just like opens up that consciousness, lets the conscious take a break, and you can have a full-blown, full-body orgasm as a woman just sitting there in hypnosis, you know, or not hypnosis. Like it's very muddy the waters between being hypnotized and not.
So is it as simple as saying, okay, when I snap my fingers, you're gonna have an orgasm, or is there's some like sexual, like erotic talk happening?
Yeah, so you can set that trigger, but you're gonna need to do some work ahead of time to really have that trigger in place.
Okay.
You know, like you need to do some hypnotic work, maybe over the course. I mean, you can if you know exactly what you're doing and that's what your goal is, you can start giving a woman like an orgasm in 10 minutes of hypnosis, you know. That's like actually how I learned. My teacher was only doing erotic hypnosis, and I wanted to go see him because I'd heard from a lot of people he was like the best, the most famous. His name is Mark Cunningham. And he was only doing erotic hypnosis. And so that's why I went to go take a seminar from him in Las Vegas. And it was all about that. And so after that, I was like running around North Carolina, giving women hypnotic orgasms for a good 6 months to a year.
Do they remember?
Yeah, they remember. Like, they remember more, not all the details, but more of the feelings. I mean, they know I like to, really be clear on ahead of time.
Yeah.
What are the possibilities?
Are you able to teach another person this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not even that hard.
Really?
Yeah, it's just the hardest part is just getting comfortable with the power of being able to do that. Like, a lot of people will really shy away from that, and because you have to sort of take on the role and become the hypnotist for it to actually work, because it's so much energy and suggestion. So that's that's the biggest obstacle, is men actually, for one, believing that it's possible, and then becoming the hypnotist enough to make it happen.
So for the skeptical, how do you explain how this stuff is possible? What exactly is happening in this process? Obviously, there's some work on the subconscious mind. There's some suggestion. Explain to me the complexities of that.
So one element, one model of the mind is the conscious mind, and then the subconscious mind, like two parts of the mind. It's sort of an older model. There's other more modern ones, but this one works well. So the conscious mind is what we're using when we're mostly awake, like talking, making plans, figuring out problems, using words. And then the subconscious is basically everything else. And so if one way you can imagine is if you take like a really bright pearl, it'd be your conscious mind, drop it into the dark continent of Australia or something, that would be the subconscious mind. So your subconscious has all your memories, all your smells, tastes. Like, how you can smell something and it brings back a memory.
Mm-hmm.
That's all stored in your subconscious. Yeah, music, touch, anything like that. Everything's in there. And so with hypnosis, you get so relaxed, you just let the conscious mind sort of take a break and go directly into the subconscious mind. And when you do that and you're that relaxed, your attention and your focus becomes just like really laser focused on one thing. And so when you're in that state called trance state, you're able to take people through experiences that the mind it feels real. And then, the subconscious doesn't know the difference between real and not real. If you believe something or visualize something as if it's real, your subconscious will accept that premise. And so when you're in that state, you can lead people through experiences that are real to the subconscious. So if it's an erotic or a sexual experience, you can make that like so real that the subconscious accepts it, and then your body reacts to that. So you will have a real sexual experience, and a woman will have a real orgasm. They're not like imagined orgasms; they're real ones.
Is it true that you would have to sort of pull from her natural desires, her style and taste? Because you can't just say, hey, this fat stinky dude is about to give you an orgasm in your mind. She's probably gonna be repulsed, right? So do you like create like her perfect avatar or something, or?
Well, there's two things you can do that, and that's much more powerful if you can really get the fantasies and those things, you know, and really make it unique to that person. But there's also a way to be very vague so that they create their own images and experiences, and you're just guiding them through them. That's what, like, you know, you'll find a lot of like fortune tellers or people like this, they do very vague readings or vague things, and then you create your own your own hypnosis, basically, your own images. That's what I remember, like the Barack Obama campaign was like, what was his slogan? It was like,
yes we can.
Yes we can. Hope was some,
yeah, hope.
yeah. And I remember, like, because I was really into hypnosis, like learning then, and his whole campaign was just hypnotic in the way that everybody created their own version of what that looks like. And that's what he was doing, is being very vague. And that's a typical like political move, is to be very vague in a positive sense so that people create their own positive images of what that means. And they're like, oh yeah, he, you know, really understands what I want.
So you're saying that hypnosis is being used in politics?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's one of the biggest places it's in use. Politics, ad agencies, advertisements, religion.
How are ad agencies using this stuff?
So if you are watching TV, you're in a trance state already, especially if you've been watching it for a while. Your brain waves slow down, and you just really just taking in everything without questioning anything, you know? So let's say you're watching a basketball game, NBA playoffs or something. It's a great game. There's 30 seconds left. Everybody's on the edge of their seats, and then the commercials come on. And there's like an ad for erectile dysfunction, or an ad for a BMW, or a beer ad with hot women. And all these things just go in, and then, you know, a day or two later, you don't know why, but you want a BMW, you know, you're going to get some of the beer that showed up there, and, you know, you're wondering why your wife isn't as hot as those girls on the commercial. So part of what they do is hypnotize you to find faults in your own life, find places that don't add up to the vision, the reality they're giving to you. And then behind that, they offer the product. And then you go buy it.
So that's what's happening with hypnosis, is a similar thing where you're providing a particular environment for someone to experience in this trance-like state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're creating a trance state. And then, you know, when I started hypnosis, I decided to stay in the light, meaning like there's a dark side to it as well. But I wanted to make sure to never go there, because if you start working in that dark side, you're going to destroy yourself. That's just what I believe.
What's the dark side?
Like manipulating people, getting things that they may not want. Like, I just want to help people get what they want. Whatever it is. I don't judge it. You know, if it's really bad, something like I don't want to work with, I'll say no, but I don't judge what people want. I'm there to help them get that. You know, I want to inspire them to have positive goals and do good things in the world, but that's not really once they come to me and hire me, then I'm just trying to help them get what they want.
Okay. So, for example, it could be like, hey, I want to quit this habit, this bad habit.
Yeah.
Right. And they come to you, and then you do your thing. And then afterwards, they're like, they no longer have that desire, I guess.
Right. Yeah. The subconscious. Yeah. Because like smoking is a big one with hypnosis. Smoking is such a subconscious behavior. People smoke without thinking about it. You're just always reaching for cigarettes. I don't know if you've ever smoked or not, like cigarettes. Yeah, I used to as well.
I still do sometimes.
Yeah. And so
if I have alcohol, I'm like, yo, anybody got a cigarette?
Really?
Yeah.
Those things are associations. That's another thing too. Like, people associate a cigarette with a cup of coffee in the morning or driving in their car. Yeah. And so with hypnosis, you can dissolve those associations. Yeah. And that really helps someone just like shift their mind and exist in a different reality. And you also have to give someone a very powerful, vivid vision of what life looks like when they've accomplished their goal. It's sort of like a magnet that pulls them towards that in the future. Like a lot of people can't really visualize themselves if they're fat or overweight. They have trouble visualizing themselves looking good, and because they believe now that they're just going to be fat forever.
Yeah.
So with hypnosis, you can give them a powerful vision of what that looks like, what it feels like, mainly what it feels like, because that's really what drives the change.
Right. Oh shit, it's snowing.
Oh man, you guys got it rough there.
Yeah, it's the worst. Kind of just lost my thought and getting distracted there. Okay, so no, coming back. There seems to be some relationship between, relationships, association, relativity. You also see this with memory, right? If you want to memorize something, you try to associate it with something else and create some sort of relativity. It seems like the mind needs this relativity for some reason or other, which I find quite fascinating. For example, I talk about this trance state you're talking about, right? And it can be self-induced, right? And I think one way is very conscious way to do it, another is like an unconscious way to do it. And I think it's the trance state you enter during meditation, and then there's a trance state when you're first waking up or first falling asleep, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've written about this or spoken about this, I can't remember, many moons ago, where I basically said I can do my work in my sleep, but really I'm talking about in the trance state, right? Not to be confused with the new gender trans.
Trans state.
Trance with a C.
Yeah.
You find that to be valid, based upon your work, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. When I work with my clients, I give them, tools to use visualization and mantras, affirmations also. And those times right after waking and right before going to sleep is the most fertile time for a human brain to make shifts, to make changes, to program their subconscious. That's really what I'm doing, is helping people program their subconscious with a new program. Because whatever program you have, if it's not working, it's not going to change until you change the program. And those trance states in the morning, at night, or when you're meditating, you're reaching that level of relaxation where you're like in the lab of the mind. And those are the most fertile times to do that. A lot of those scientists, like inventors and stuff, there's one really famous one, I can't remember his name, but he would go into his office, turn out all the lights, just lay on his couch or whatever, and then come out 20, 30 minutes later with the solution to the problem. He wouldn't try to figure out the solution.
That's Einstein.
Oh, was it Einstein?
That's Einstein.
Yeah, he would give himself instructions to find the solution, and then go lay down and let it go, and then come out like 20, 30 minutes later with a bunch of new ideas.
Yep. Yeah.
And our brains are so powerful, and to be able to like learn to use them in that way is like a superpower.
Yeah, I had this realization many years ago through studies and self-application. But most recently, I was sitting in a hotel room in Miami, and I think I just got out of chess training or something like that, and I was dozing off. While I'm dozing off, in the waking state, we practice playing chess in the mind. Like, you don't need a chessboard. You just see the pieces up here. And with the waking mind, it's much more difficult. But as I entered into that trance, I saw the board. Like, I'm half awake, and I'm like playing chess in my mind. And then you're like very frustrated, because then you wake up and you're like, you lose that same ability.
Yeah. It's there's so many things in waking life, so much input, so much distractions. When you're just in that state, you can focus on one thing. It's just as real as actually sitting there looking at the board.
Yeah.
And even more real in a way, because you see different dimensions of it. It's like, Yeah, it's really incredible. And chess is a really cool way to tap into that, I think.
Yeah. That's one of my motives for chess is the visualization aspect of things. As you
Mm-hmm.
know, with manifesting the life you want, you have to be able to visualize and experience in the mind the life you want to live.
Yeah.
Do you get into that whole manifestation stuff?
Yeah, I do a lot of manifestation, more like visualization. And I used to be really into like the end goal, like the manifestation, but now I want to create a powerful goal, something that really inspires me, and then just really focus on the process, like just loving the process, being really present in the moment. I think one of the things that can happen if you focus too much on the goal is losing your presence in the moment. And you miss a lot of things if you do that,
Yeah.
so that's one thing I'm really like focusing on is just existing in this moment and being fully present, like in this conversation, or if I'm having a conversation with someone, or if I'm swimming in the pool, like out here, just really feeling everything.
Yeah, Uncle Hotep has problems with that. He's always, when I'm speaking, he tends not to pay attention.
I love Uncle Hotep, man. He's a deep well of wisdom, that guy.
Man, hashtag cancel Uncle Hotep. We're sick of that guy. Shout out to Chad Lemoyne. He said, shout out to Andy, Man of Water, represent. Oh, yeah. Hey, stop
Yeah.
grifting. Hit the super chats. Bless us with some love. Got a professional hypnotist online. If you want to ask him a question or comment, go hit the super chat button right now. Why are the names coming out different colors now? This whole new live thing is very, very weird. Yes, we are live right now. Now, shifting gears a little bit here, you do something called Tantra.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What is this Tantra thing?
So we'll call it Tantra.
Tantra.
Because that's it comes from India, so that's the way they say it. But I do you can say whatever, the back and forth, I do say them both. But
Tantra.
so Tantra comes from India, several hundred years ago. And it's basically, when it's distilled down, is the study and the art and science of energy, of the energy of the human body.
Okay.
It's a spiritual discipline, and it is one of the only ones that really embraces the body and the pleasure and sensations and like living in your body. Like, one thing I found with Christianity is like sort of suppresses those instincts and urges, of like sexuality.
Okay.
There's a little element in there, but Tantra is like open to that. And so, and it's one of the ways to really, because we have incredible like sexual energy coming through us all the time, because that's how we create our species, and that's how we create anything, really, is this creative like sexual energy. And so Tantra is a science and art that teaches you how to control that energy, to transmute it into other things that are powerful, and really like focus on the present moment. So it's a spiritual, energetic discipline coming out of India, but it's come to the West now, and now it's like, if you hear Tantra, a lot of people think of like sexual things, sexual positions, or that's actually the Kama Sutra. But it's just got its connotation as just a sexual like orgy, Tantra orgy, whatever.
Yeah, the first thing that came to mind was Rajneesh. You know about Rajneesh?
Rajneesh, no.
Oh, it's a documentary called Wild Wild Country. And
yeah,
Osho, yeah. He's the Osho dude, yeah.
Yeah, Osho, yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
he's one of the big
rebranded.
Tantra. Yeah, he's one of the big Tantra authors. Yeah.
Yes.
That's a wild documentary. Yeah, I'm not really setting out to
start a sex cult.
To start a sex cult, but
you're not doing that.
You never know what happens. Life is crazy sometimes.
Yeah, if you guys never saw a documentary Wild Wild Country, it's really, for me, it was inspiring, right? Because um, just from a political point of view, to
Yeah.
show how you can govern yourself in America. You know, you get a
Yeah.
plot of land. I think the population there, wherever he got his plot of land, the population was like 50. And
Yeah, it's like Oregon or Washington. It was up in the Northwest.
yeah, and he
Mhm.
votes out the whole local
Yeah, they
town.
started making the rules they wanted. That was, yeah, it was amazing.
Imagine being 50 deep in a little town. Some people show up by the hundreds and then vote you out of your own town.
Yeah, that's democracy in action.
It's democracy in action.
Yeah, that's the way it works. I mean, that's powerful.
Yeah.
To be, and if you can, realize that and take advantage of it, then you can do a lot of things.
And then to set the rules, right? To set the rules of that place. Alcohol rules, drug rules, firearms rules, all these different, laws of the land. I mean, the guy had a distillery, he had an airport, they were making their own clothes there. I'm pretty sure they were doing farming. It was just, for somebody who, wants to live, quote unquote, off the grid, like they were actually living that life. They were importing homeless people and whatnot. But
yeah, they were bringing all the homeless people. They were actually putting something in the beer too. They were giving like free beer all the time, and there was some drug or something they put in the beer.
Really?
That had some sort of effect. I probably like fluoride in the water.
Like a sedative.
Yeah, it makes them like just chill and not want to like leave or just stay there and like do the work.
Yeah.
I remember that being an interesting part of that equation.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, quite fascinating.
Yeah, sort of like the autonomous zones, except like legal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sketch Therapy said, can you speak on neuro-linguistic anchors, patterns, and triggers as used by Tony Robbins, Ross Jeffries, and Richard Brandler in news coverage of events, specifically in inciting riots and manipulating economic news?
Yeah. Yeah, so he's talking about, or she is talking about NLP, and it's called neuro-linguistic programming, and that's, what Tony Robbins really started using. And that's basically, just a new form of hypnosis that people use in business and communications. And like we were talking earlier, like you, when we were talking about the orgasm, you can get someone in trance state and set a trigger. And then when you say that word or, make that sound, then that triggers that particular state that you condition them to feel or think about when they hear that trigger. It's Pavlov's dog, it's the same concept. And so that's what neuro-linguistic program is using it, and it's been like really refined to work in business situations or any kind of communication with people. Like one of the big things is like mirroring. You mirror someone, like you kind of like this happens subconsciously sometimes. Like if somebody you're talking and you're in rapport with them, and they like scratch their ear or take a drink from their cup, and you take a drink from the cup, then it creates like more rapport. But if you're consciously, this is what I found with NLP, if you're always thinking of those things and doing those things, you're not present. You're always like, and it's just can be kind of weird, if like you're always thinking of ways to manipulate people and stuff like that.
So Scott Adams must be a hypnotist.
He's a hypnotist, yeah.
Yeah.
He's giving us all a bad name out there right now, though.
He does the simultaneous sip where he makes everybody drink their coffee at the same time as him. So he's doing a little bit of NLP there as well.
Yeah, he is, yeah.
Yeah. Is he a professional hypnotist or just a persuasionist?
I think he is a professional, or was. Like once you learn hypnosis and become, even if you never, you got to practice it to really internalize it. But once you internalize the mechanisms and the communication styles, then you just become that way. You become hypnotic, and because you can use those things, not in a negative way, not in a manipulative way, but just a way to make your communication more effective.
Right.
More powerful.
Yeah.
Ways to get your message across.
Yeah, I think Scott Adams trying to hypnotize us into thinking that we didn't know no better when it came to saying no to the jab.
Yeah, I mean, he's saying like, well, it was just a guess, and I guessed wrong, or I didn't have access to the information. I'm like, man, all you got to do is like look at history, look at history. I mean, and look at the people who are creating these circumstances, and then look at the people who are offering solutions to them. And those are the same people. And it's not hard to make that connection. I mean, and so, I used to follow Scott, but I was like, I don't want to hear no more of that,
Well, it sounds like you're talking about some sort of secret organized group of people like the Illuminati, and you're getting into conspiracy theories, and I don't think Scott gets into those things.
Well, if you don't, then you're subject to making uninformed decisions. It's not really about the Illuminati necessarily, but if you followed anything about the Wuhan lab or any of the things going on there, or the research done in North Carolina before it went there, and then you saw the same people who were covering that up and saying, here, we have a solution. You don't have to believe in the Illuminati to see that connection.
Ain't that the truth? Sketch Diary said news hypnotism is evil. Its first way, but it's based on NLP. Yeah. All right, let's jump back to Tantra.
But I call the book the Tantric Male. So Tantric, Tantra, you can say whatever you want. But the more I've used it, the more I've gone to Tantra.
Okay. So you have a new book out called The Tantric Male.
Yeah.
And what's in this book? What are we going to learn?
Okay, so the Tantric Male is basically, so like we were talking earlier, the way people realize and learn about Tantra here is through sex and what that means. And so that's sort of the door that I learned about it from. I learned from my hypnosis teacher, Mark Cunningham, I was telling you about. And he just opened the idea of, and I know you're familiar with this because I've heard you talk about it, is like the idea of separating orgasm from ejaculation. And this is for a man, mainly, right? This idea is like semen retention. And so, yeah, that separating those two things to me was mind-blowing, because I had, when we're growing up as men in the US or wherever, it's the same thing. You have an orgasm, you ejaculate, and that's it, right? That's what we learn. But it's not that at all. You can have all kinds of different orgasms, and you don't have to ejaculate every time you have sex either. You can, like, if you retain your energy over periods of time, you get stronger, you get more energy, and your sex life like changes dramatically. So that was sort of the door that opened for me into Tantra. And that's sort of like chapter 1 in my book. And then after that, it goes much deeper into energy work, chakra system, breathing techniques to change your energy, to change your reality, to enter trance states, into meditation, into learn how to connect really deeply with another person. Love, basically, and deep connection. And then there's some parts about like becoming a tantric warrior, like having those in a balanced life as a man, like being able to please your woman, have love, but also like use weapons if you need to, or get your financial life in order, or your health, like balancing those things and becoming a tantric warrior. And so it starts with sex, opens that door, and then it's just, after that, it's just purely like spiritual work for the man.
You mentioned chakras, right? And I don't know what the demographic is. It seems to be from what I'm experiencing, mostly white male, probably leaning conservative. You start mentioning stuff like chakra, and like, all right, this guy's bullshit, right? What the hell is this hocus pocus garbage he's talking about? How do you speak to a mind like that, or how do you speak about a mind like that? Where is that person, and how do you describe this, maybe in a more scientific sense?
Well, that used to be me. I was like, what is chakra gonna do for me? You know, like, what does this even matter? What does this mean? But that was a while ago. I started learning about the energetic body we have, and the way our meridians around our body, how our energy changes, and how we are like broadcasting to the world how we feel inside. Whatever our makeup is, our thoughts, our beliefs, our energy, we are giving that to the world at every moment. And that's, when you have intuition about someone, when you feel like, oh man, I love that energy of that person, or like something's off with that person, you don't know what it is. That's your energetic body feeling that energy. And so there's another dimension to this physical reality. It's the energy dimension. And, the Indian and Chinese, the Eastern disciplines that go back thousands of years really understood that. They understood that dimension. And the Indian developed the chakra system. There's 7 main chakras, points on the body where your energy is centrally organized. And then there's like another 140 other ones around the body, like secondary ones. And they just found these points where the energy is like vortexed in your body. And so when I started learning about them years ago, I did a little study on myself about where my chakras are healthy and where they are not. And because each chakra corresponds to a different part of your life. Like the root chakra is connected to your rootedness to the earth, your family, your tribe, like your ideas about safety and money, like as far as survival goes. And so like if those things aren't healthy in your life, you're going to feel that in your root chakra as a problem, as an energetic issue. And so different chakras relate to, you got your heart chakra, which relates to your openness, your empathy, your love for people. Your throat chakra relates to your communication, your creative ideas. So each chakra relates to a different part of your life. And I found like my crown chakra has always been just like crazy, vibrating, amazing. And that's like your connectedness to the universe, your crown chakra. That's where your birth and your death come through. And for me, like that has always been really healthy part of my life, is I've always been curious and learning about different religions and like deeply connected to humanity and life. I've had that. But I've had issues in my heart. Like I saw that and I worked on that, and some other issues in my body. And your chakra is one way to really have another like understanding angle to your life, your energy, and where those places might be stuck, where the energy movement in your body. If you have a problem in your solar plexus in this chakra here, or your heart, your energy is going to get stuck there. And people develop, like physical issues from those energies being stuck, cancers or headaches, or if their third eye chakra is like. So, I mean, I understand that person who's like, this is woo-woo hippie stuff, because I used to be that person. But, once I let that go, I learned.
How do you prove some of this stuff scientifically?
I think you would do like an energy. You would do an energy study of person if you do the waves and stuff. They've done a lot of studies on hypnosis with the energy waves, where you can measure energy waves and different thoughts, that come from different parts of the brain or produce a certain type of energy. Mm-hmm. That's one way to do it. And they've also they're getting into more quantum physics. And quantum physics is uncovering a lot of the things that like the ancients already were working with.
Right.
You know, like you can measure things happening in the, what they call the matrix or whatever, this universe. Like you can produce a thought and change, you know, when they say you look at an experiment in quantum physics, you change it. And so that's like your energy is changing the experiment just simply by observing it.
Yeah.
And I think quantum physics is it's really just bringing back what they already knew in the ancient world as far as energy work goes and those things, you know. And of course they're not gonna, they don't want like they don't want us to know these things. They, you know.
They. Here we go. Who is they? Who is they, Andy?
They, I think, they is Ye.
They is Ye. That's a good one.
No, I mean, I think there's, you know, I do think there's a group, there's some families that have a lot of power and control in the world. And I think the system is set up to where the people underneath that hold it in place. It's like it holds it in place to keep it there, to keep it moving, keep it working. And plus they like their posh positions near the top. But, you know, at the top, there's these families that work in the shadows. And then I think personally, there's extraterrestrial communication. There's off-world leadership or influence. This is my take, because this is how I got into all this stuff early on, was studying UFOs and extraterrestrials. And I think there's definitely a presence here.
So you're saying Biden is getting instructions from another planet?
I don't know who Biden is getting instructions. I don't think he understands the instructions that he's getting.
Dr. Fauci, George Soros, these guys. Bill
I think
Gates.
the people who are getting those instructions you don't see them. You know, they're not facing the world.
Oh, so it's off-world instructions to some hidden face, then to the faces that we see.
That's what I think. Yeah.
Sounds very plausible.
Like in general, not necessarily like
every single decision.
Know what I mean? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And those are the people up in those positions that hold the system in place and keep it moving forward with a certain, because you think like this idea of centralization of power, this idea of one world government goes across generations. Like it's been going on for a long time. You know, these people aren't like, well, I'm going to have this done in 10 years. They're thinking like hundreds of years.
Right.
You know, and that is, I think that is an off-world communication, because it's not designed for the freedom and the prosperity of the people.
Right.
You can tell that, you know, like we have to fight for that.
Right. So do you think the off-world people are evil, bad?
I think it's a mix.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I think the ones who have control over this system, this planet right now, are not full of love. That's what it feels like to me, just in general. You know, having been on the planet for as long as I've been now.
Who are they giving instructions to? Is it mostly United States and NATO, or are they giving instructions to China too, or is it different federations back in different countries?
I think, you know, like that non-facing system, the in the shadow group, I think they get instructions and kind of spread it out. And there's different factions and gangs too. You know, they don't all agree on everything. But like when you really go deep into it, you find a lot of those people are in the same rooms, whether it be China, Russia, and the United States, or whatever, you know. Yeah. But it's also like it's a Wild West. It's a humanity on the planet. And it gets messy, you know, and sometimes they don't agree on certain issues and they fight each other, but at the end, none of them will turn the board over. You know what I mean? They keep the board there.
Yeah.
Keep the pieces on the board. They may try to like take your queen, but they're not turning the board over.
Right. All right, let's reel it back in really fast. Because we were talking about the Tantra, right? And then how do we get on the aliens?
The
Okay,
chakra system.
the chakra system, yes.
Yeah.
So we were talking about, I believe the experiment you're talking about is the electron experiment. And that's the one where the observer actually manipulates the experiment. He affects the experiment, et cetera, et cetera. Very true. Also, I want to put across your table, are you familiar with Kirlian photography?
Yeah, where it takes a photo of your energetic body.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, they got this thing called Kirlian photography. You guys should check that out. Kirlian. And one of the searches here is Kirlian photography for chakras and for the aura, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And some fascinating things you can find here. But why do you think that the off-world people want to, or the people here, why do they want to separate us from these studies, you know, the chakra systems? Because I notice it mostly with religious folk, like mostly religious folk. They're like, oh, that's the devil's work you're talking about, right? And and they usually stay away from it. So I think religion, or the people running the religions, look at it as competition, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just like, you know, you don't need to come to church no more if you can just do everything yourself at home, right?
Exactly. I mean, you know, yeah, that's one thing. The religious aspect is you can have direct interaction and experience with the creator.
Yeah.
You know, this is what I feel. Without the church, or I think the church, I think a lot of churches are great. They bring people together.
Yeah.
It's that community aspect. But the idea of you having to go through the priest or the preacher to reach God, I think is a control mechanism.
Yeah.
We all have God in us, you know, all the time. And like, all you got to do is sit and meditate on that to really dial in, to call God on the phone.
Yeah.
And that's one aspect. And I think another aspect is just power in the hands of the people to know how much power you have with your mind, with your energy, to know what you're capable of. You become a lot less controllable. And, you know, as a population, if you wanted to control the populations to be, you know, keep them sort of like in place, you would try to debunk these ideas and that give people power. You know, when you get control of your energy, you're a different person.
Yeah.
You know, you're not watching pornography and just like seeping all your energy out all the time on some worthless garbage.
Yeah.
You're maintaining your energy, and you're using it to create beautiful, positive, powerful things in the world.
Right.
And I think that is a threat to, you know, anyone that's like trying to control a population.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. You kind of got me sidetracked thinking about this whole Tantra thing again and having these orgasms. Now, you said having an orgasm without ejaculation. Right?
Yeah.
I understand this theoretically, but experientially, this is quite an unknown phenomenon for me.
Okay.
So what's exactly happening here? Am I like still getting the same exact feeling of an ejaculation, or is this a different feeling? Is it a different part of the body? Does my head
obviously
spin
you're
around?
gonna have to read the book, obviously.
That's step one.
Yeah. But no, like
where do we get the book?
After you take your master focus, then read the book. The book is at the tantricmale.com. That's where the book is.
The
right now.
tantricmale.com.
Yeah, it's an ebook right now.
Okay. So we can't get the physical?
Not right now, not yet. We'll get that together when I get home from Mexico. But yeah, so
you.
take your
It's not
master
working.
focus.
Oh, I typed in Tantric. My bad. The Tantric. I put the R in the wrong spot.
The Tantric Male.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, take your master focus, read the book, and then you'll know what to do after that.
So, reading this book is where I'll learn to unlock this superpower.
Well, I'll tell you about it. So orgasm, step one is to think about orgasm in a different way.
Okay.
Or separating it from ejaculation. A lot of people think that that's an orgasm, is just ejaculating.
Yeah.
Okay. So the definition of orgasm can be completely different. There's like energetic, like climaxes. I guess you would think of an orgasm as like a climax to an experience, like a sexual experience, right?
Yeah.
But you can have like all sorts of other climaxes within a sexual experience without ejaculating. Like, I mean, there's like an energy shooting out of your head type of an orgasm. And then there's like full body orgasms. You can think of an orgasm as like that experience when you like taste your favorite food or like something that just blows your mind, you can feel that in your body and have an orgasmic experience there. So like thinking of orgasm in more energetic terms and feeling those, like once you practice not ejaculating for a while, like, I mean, I remember you talking about this, I think it's in your masculinity book, right? Like there's a equation of like how, depending on your age, how
20% of your age, yeah.
You should ejaculate.
That's the amount of days, yeah. You take 20% of your age, and that's how many days you should go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like every now and again, that just kind of like cleanses your body and your energy.
Right.
But the rest of the time, like you're having sexual experiences with your wife or your girlfriend or whoever, you can have like, you will find peak climactic experiences within those sexual situations that aren't ejaculating. And those are what, in Tantra is considered different types of orgasms.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just in your mind, separating those definitions of ejaculation and orgasm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Because if you think like a woman, like they have orgasms, they can have 3 or 4, 5 orgasms in an experience and never just like, once we have a ejaculatory orgasm, we're just out. Like we need a sandwich, we need to go to sleep.
Yeah. It's over. The machine shut down.
Yeah, but women can go like, and they sometimes get more energy. And
oh yeah.
So if you think of it like that, you can think of like separating orgasm from ejaculation, and it really like changes your approach to sex. Like there's no destination in mind, like there's no finish line. It's just pure experience and showing your woman incredible pleasure.
How do you deal with the cognitive dissonance of the minds of some of the people? My motto is I just don't deal with them. For example, the type of conversation we're having when we start talking about what do you call it, quantum physics,
mm-hmm.
Chakras, the trance state. I tend not to have these conversations with most people. I think maybe it's just like just beyond their ability to grasp the information because they've never been introduced to it before.
Yeah.
But how do you deal with that? Do you think we need to make attempts to unlock new minds? Do you think we should just keep doing our work? Like, me? I just ignore those minds. I'm like, you'll get it later. Am I right or wrong in that? Or
no, I think well, with trance, it's really easy for me because I've been doing it so long. I've given so many different kinds of people the talk about how their mind works. And so like anybody, I can explain that they're in hypnosis most of the time, like highway hypnosis. If you're ever in a car and you're just off thinking, but the car is driving and it gets to where it's going, like examples of this or people are like, oh I've done that. I know what that is. I'm like, that's hypnosis and trance, you know? Or if you're in a movie or a book that's so good, you just forget about everything else. Like, there's experiences in life that people can relate to that show them what trance is.
Yeah.
And so once you open that door, I mean, there's other possibilities. So I've talked with people like that come to me to work with me. But like, if it's just some like random, you know, like just fighting back and contradicting, that's their own issue, you know, that's their own problem. I'll give you whatever information I can to help you, but like, you know, I'm not out to necessarily convince people. I'm out to reach people who are ready for the message to help them get them to the next step.
How would you diagnose that type of mind, or describe how that type of mind came to be that way and be so dogmatic in accepting some of these ideas?
I think they're in really deep hypnosis.
So that they don't believe in this stuff because they're in a hypnosis themselves.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's how I see the world. Like, because it's all about programming of the mind. And since I've been in this work so long, I see how it works on people, you know, and if they're like that, they're probably hypnotized or programmed by either their religion or what they see on the news, or whoever gave them the information that they're citing as gospel was their hypnotist.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have empathy for these people because they're programmed very deeply, and many of them are not going to make it out of that, and they won't ever like see the possibilities of living in an open reality. So
living in an open reality, I like that. So I released Master Focus. That's my herbal nootropic for brain health, focus, concentration, memory, flow, etc., etc. You know, from my experience using the product and then studying the brain, what you're saying makes a lot of sense, right? Because I've read a total of 2 books on just basic brain science, right? Nothing like, you know, medical level, right? Just here's how the brain works. Here's the parts of the brains. Here's what we know about neurology so far. One thing I realized was that neurologists actually don't know anything about the brain. they have a lot of theories. They have a lot of, I think this does what this does.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, even like when certain parts of the brain are shut off, like those functions move to other parts of the brain. So it's like, wait, we thought that part of the brain controls it. It's like, no, another part of the brain can do the same job, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So, but you also have like, you know, there's this study of the patient's name is M. You know, they keep them obviously anonymous. And she doesn't feel fear. Like she literally, you cannot scare her.
Right.
In fact, the only way for them to induce fear was they had to suffocate her. They didn't induce it through drowning.
Man.
And then she had like that panic reaction.
Okay.
But it just shows how like certain things in people's brains could just be completely shut off. So sometimes when I look at somebody, I'm looking at them, I'm like, what parts of your brain are shut off because you can't accept this information here, right? But I think the biggest thing I learned was, I think it was the fight or flight chapter, and basically how we experience our environment is going to dictate the hormones created, right? So if we feel ourselves are in a fearful environment, then our brain is going to produce those types of chemicals. If we feel confident in an environment's very comfortable, then it's going to produce those types of chemicals, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So it kind of shows that like if you change how you perceive your environment at a biological level, you change.
Yeah.
Right?
That's exactly right, yeah.
So getting into some of the things you do, it's like, because obviously a lot of stuff is placebo, right? It's like what you believe is what you will achieve.
Yeah.
So when you're dealing with Tantra, you're dealing with hypnosis, you're dealing with suggestion, there could be things happening biologically and energetically, because I believe all things come from science, and the science comes from spirits. It's a symbiotic relationship, and I think there's,
Right.
but I think there's like if they checked, you know, the hormones in your body, like going through some of these phases of hypnosis, I'm sure we would see some fluctuations and change, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I like, you know, for me, I don't like to study the stuff you guys study until let me not say that. Let me say I don't like to teach it until I can teach it scientifically,
Right.
because so many people like stuck in the physical world. It's like, all right, well, let me explain to you how this works physically.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And that's really important, you know, for a lot of people. And like, so I think a good distinction is to make is between your brain and your mind. They're different things. Your brain is the actual physical muscle in your body, and the chemicals and the energetic, like firings and synapses and those things. Your mind is, you know, everything else, like what's considered personality, your memory, like all those things that aren't as tangible.
Yeah.
So that's a good distinction to make. And so when you're talking about the brain, yes, it's great to take a scientific approach and, you know, really understand that, you know, when you're in hypnosis and having these experiences, your body releases those chemicals that are like pleasure chemicals or fear chemicals. Like you can induce those actual chemicals in your body by the experience in your mind. And I think that's really where one of the connections takes place, is those chemicals flooding your body. You know, when someone walks out of my office, they're like, their face changes, they're like, have this smile on their face, their body's tingling. They've got a lot of these chemicals, these, you know, powerful, positive, like pleasure chemicals running through. I guess what would some of those be like? What some of the pleasure chemicals people?
Well, you got
Serotonin, is that one of them?
serotonin, you got dopamine.
Yeah, dopamine.
And then there's a whole list of like tyrosine, you know, a whole bunch of neurotransmitters that I can't remember. Yeah.
So a lot of people, they talk about dopamine from like social media things, like getting likes on your picture, or even just scrolling through and having a little shot. Like we have this like dopamine injection in us from our phone.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
But you know, the funny thing is, you know, with the neurotransmitters, they're still discovering new neurotransmitters and things that they do. Right? Like,
yeah.
It's so much that's undiscovered about the brain.
It's incredible. It's like the final frontier. You know, we've been out to the space, but we haven't really been into the brain too much. You know.
Yeah.
We're gonna find a lot of things that are interesting. You know, one thing I found with hypnosis that I found scientifically was, you know, we create these synapses, you know, like that fire energy in patterns. So when you do a habit over time, you create these like highways of energy in your brain. And so when you're making changing a habit, part of that is dissolving those transmitters, those synapses, and creating new ones that make a new pattern to be able to fire energy more consistently. So like you're actually changing your brain when you're changing your habits or changing your life. Yeah.
Once upon a time, I wrote a book. I gave it out for free for a little while, and then now it's floating somewhere in space. But I taught people how to quit smoking cigarettes, and one of them was replace the cigarette habit. You know, so when you when you have a craving for a cigarette, what I did was I just did push-ups.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly. Yeah. Because we're addictive creatures. Right. You know, whatever our habits are, we do them over and over. And I think it has a lot to do with the firing in the brain. So yeah, changing a habit, that's definitely one of the things I help people change, you know, teach is, that's a great one, because you're switching smoking, which is destroying your health, to push-ups, which is accelerating your health.
Yeah.
Like the direct opposite.
Yeah. You know, I like to ask people, I say, if you were standing in space, which way is up? Right?
Yeah. Right.
It's just like, okay, which space is left and which space is right? You can't answer that question until you bring another object in, right? So everything in our life is relative to something else, which makes us interacting as human beings fascinating, and leads to a realm of discoverability, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
a question for you is: do you find that you discover more about yourself when you hypnotize other people or doing tantra or whatnot? Tantra.
Yeah. Yeah. I learn a lot about myself in that way. Teaching, you know, this whole saying, you really learn something when you teach it.
Facts.
Like you learn something and you learn it to a certain level, but when you actually start teaching it, you have to break it down in your own mind into a digestible formula for someone. And that really teaches you what the elements are that really work, you know? And I've had some amazing experiences with hypnosis and people and learning just about humans in general. That's one of the reasons I love to travel, like why I'm in Mexico right now. Just discovering parts of myself, discovering other cultures, how they do things, learning language. You know, I'm learning like songs in Spanish, learning how to speak Spanish. And it's just a continuous process of growing and shifting my perspective and expanding my perspective.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I feel like if you're not expanding, you're contracting. And when I find things that are contracting, then that's my signal. I've built it in to be like really aware and to say no if anything feels to me contracting.
I like that. Yeah, I always say if you're not learning, then you're dying. But yeah, same concept.
Yeah.
But you're right. You know, in order to learn, to really understand a subject matter, you got to teach it. I think that's the final level of learning. And I always say, you know, a man could never teach another man how to be a man until he's raised a son. Right. You know, you can tell a man your journey, but until you've had a son and how to raise a son, you really don't grasp being a man or masculinity. You think you do. You grasp it for yourself, but it's another thing when you have to nurture that little man.
Yeah.
And all the trials and tribulations he goes through and helping him deal with that emotionally and psychologically and how you mold a man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. So you have son, right? Or
yeah,
2 sons?
Twins. Yeah.
So what are some of the biggest insights that you've discovered in as far as becoming a man and raising your kids?
Most of it discovered recently. Like I said, I started homeschooling them. So immediately we started off with the brain, right?
Yeah.
Understanding like why you think a certain way, why you act a certain way, how to deal with fear, because they're athletes, right? So you have to learn how to deal with fear and competition. Placebo. I think it's very important for them to understand the concept of placebo and understanding that your translation of reality is going to produce some effect.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like you might think it's pointless, but nah, it's very real. But I think I tried to explain to them a certain spiritual phenomenon, and it didn't click until I gave them the biology behind it. And like I said, usually when you can give somebody the biology and show them it in science, and then they have no choice but to grasp it because you've explained it to them scientifically.
Yeah.
So, you know, just the placebo chapter alone, you know, talking about placebo, talking about fight or flight, how one could induce the production of cortisol, and another one could induce, you know, testosterone, right? Or whatever you need for whatever it is that you're mentally preparing yourself for.
Yeah.
But a lot of it comes down to auto-suggestion and conditioning.
Right. Yeah.
Like I gave them a creed, and every morning they got to recite that creed.
Nice.
You know.
It just goes in and builds character every day.
Yeah, because when you go to school, they do the same thing to you. They hypnotize your kids. I pledge allegiance, United States flag of America, and to the republic. You know, you got to recite that, and even I still got it somewhat memorized, right?
Right.
But there's a certain level of hypnosis, and it's just like, okay, it's fine. You believe kids should recite that for whatever reason, right? But what other creeds or pledges have you given your children? What
Yeah.
other pledges have you given yourself? I know a lot of people, they talk about affirmations.
Right.
And I guess that could be in line with that. For me,
Yeah,
affirmations
it's
are
basically
very,
the same thing as what I feel like. Yeah.
yeah,
Auto suggestion, you know?
yeah. For me, sometimes I feel like affirmations are a bit feminine.
Uh-huh.
It's like, I will be happy today. I
Right.
will be, like I'm gonna get along with my friends. I think really what it comes down to is just my masculine energy has so much control over so much of my mind now that I don't need that stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I guess for somebody who hasn't developed that mental control,
Yeah. Yeah, so I think it's a good entryway, a good start to even just start experimenting with the power of your words and your thoughts. But yeah, once you're, a certain level, you can just think something, create a vision in your mind, and that's like all the affirmation you need.
Well, and my thing is, the words mean nothing, and how you feel about the words means everything, right? Because you can say I love you to somebody, but if you say it with malice in your heart, does that translate into love in your body? Right?
Right.
No,
Yeah.
you harbor
No.
malice, so you're gonna harbor a malice vibratory frequency.
Yeah.
So for me, it's very important, when I teach these things to people, it's that you have to feel the words.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Reciting them isn't enough. You have to.
And the more powerful you can feel them, then the more powerful they become.
Yes.
Giving them all your focus and energy, yeah, and feeling, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
I also deal in selfless manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, I can't wait to get to a certain point in my career so I can, do something nice for somebody else. Right. And then reaching that point in your career and then actually doing that. Because I think sometimes when people deal in manifestation, it's all about me, 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 me. I want a new car. I want this. I want that.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I remember the first time I bought a new car. That feeling went away so fast.
As soon as you drive it off the lot. Right?
As soon as I drew it off the lot, I was just like, I feel normal again.
Yeah. Yeah, I sold the BMWs for like 6 months. The only job I've ever had. I wanted to learn sales.
Yeah.
And part of our thing was like, is we couldn't wait for them to take that car out of the lot, because as soon as it's on the street, it's a different car. You know what I mean? It's no longer a new car. It just dropped in value like 20 grand.
Yeah. But, you just don't find much fulfillment in getting things. Like I don't own things, I would say 90% of my stuff are investments in the family, the household, the kids, myself, my production value. That's 95. I would say 95%. The only other place I splurge is on food. I'm not cheap on food. I don't buy fake orange juice. I buy organic. If we're going to go out to eat, I'm not looking at the prices. I'm buying what I want. You know what I mean?
Right.
Not to say I'm going to the, the most expensive thing in the menu. I'm not shopping by price. I'm just going to pick what I want, and I don't care what it costs. That's what I'm eating that day,
Yeah.
So, I don't skimp on things like that. But,
those are investments also. Investing in your health and your experience in the world,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like I would much rather have a wonderful dinner experience like that than some watch or something like that. Like
yeah
I don't get that. But yeah, I totally agree, man. Like there has to be an element of serving humanity in your dreams, your goals,
right.
Otherwise you're just gonna be caught in this cycle of just focusing on yourself.
But it's not even fulfilling.
You reach these goals, you reach those points in your career, and there's nobody around to share it with, and you're like, oh man, I should have done something different. Like, this house is nice, but it's lonely in here.
Yeah.
And that's not a life,
But I think experiences are more important, right? For example, you ever have like two types of moments. Like one is like where you reflect on something you did in the past and you cringe. And another one is like you just start laughing out of nowhere because you're like reliving a moment in your life where it's just fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you can't do that with things.
Right.
Like when you buy a new car, that feeling you get after you buy the new car, you can't get that back. You got to buy another new car.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very fleeting fulfillment feeling. It's gone quickly.
Yeah. So
yeah, the only way that would be good is if you use those things for experiences that have other people involved, or you like remember, I took my family in this car to this beautiful place. The family is what gives it meaning, that memory and joy,
Yeah. Yeah, I did something very out of character. Me and the fam, we were in Key West, and my daughter is a typical college teenager, so she doesn't want to use her feet and walk. And so we were walking around Key West, and there's these dune buggies, right? And like golf carts. Yeah. And they're obviously like completely overpriced on the rental. They're like $100 a day. And I'm like, I can go rent a car and for the whole vacation for the same price as this thing.
Yeah.
But it's not as cool, right? Because these little golf carts, you can just roll up and just park them on the sidewalk anywhere. You don't need parking, You got the breeze flowing and people are looking at you. So it's an experience, right? So I'm like, all right, fuck it, $100. And we did that. And was it worth it? Yeah, I think it was. Was it worth it from a accounting standpoint? Absolutely not. Yeah. But knowing that, me and the family had fun that day, and, we didn't have to be on our feet all day, and, there were advantages, where, they wanted to go stop and take pictures or something. All right, I'll just wheel this thing around. We'll park right here. We run out, take the picture, hop back in, go. Like, it came with a lot of little advantages that, money can't buy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but I think, it's about the experiences, those things last longer.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, totally. It can't all be about numbers, Yeah. Because you're not taking none of that with you when you go. Right. Like you can leave some to your family, but they would, those memories are going to be much more potent and powerful than anything else. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. So it's a good balance. It's a good balance to find, to be financially healthy and also like have a lot of fun, have good experiences.
How do you feel about procrastination?
Procrastination in like what context?
Just people, having something to do, like, I'll do it tomorrow, whether it's task, work, whatever.
Yeah, I like what Gary Vee's been talking about this a lot. I like what he's saying about, like, to a certain extent, to where if you find you're lazy and procrastinating on something, maybe you just don't like it that much. You're doing something you don't really like. Like when I'm working on projects, I'm making an album or I'm writing this book, I find that I'm excited to go get it done, to put it together, to get the information to people. And there's some things that I hate to do, and I procrastinate on those things. So I think there's an element of that. Maybe it's something you don't like. And there's also an element of comfort, especially in our society where we're just so comfortable. Like you can just sit and play a video game and order a pizza or something. I don't play video games, but like that's a comfortable thing to do. You don't have to go do anything. And like that sort of habit can, I think, build the muscle of procrastination. I think one thing I started doing was when I thought of something that needed to be done, I do it immediately. I don't because you only got so much room in your brain. Like you can't, remember all these things that need to be done. So when I think of someone I need to call, I call them. Or when I send an email when I need to, or if it's taking out the trash, I think of it, I do it. That's one thing a shift I made, several years ago that really kind of got rid of procrastination in many ways.
Yeah. Jabari Judah, he said, George Floyd protests were mass hypnosis on a global scale, associating a chauvinistic pig with the crime buried a mental image in everyone's mind. Yeah, there's definitely an element of conditioning happening. So race in America is its form of, or racism, or the racist conversation is a form of hypnosis in America, right? Where, like we talked about before, the brain operates off of relativity, and it needs something outside of itself to understand things. So when you deal with the black versus white phenomenon, you can see how it can be used, or hypnosis can be used for nefarious purposes to divide people. I think there's something there.
Yeah.
Cassius came saying, Andy got bars. Glad to hear you speak and put a personality to your profile. It's a pleasure having you with Men of Order. Very unique asset. Indeed. Ladies and gentlemen,
Yeah,
he's
thanks, Cassius.
Andy is one of the writers at Men of Order, menoforder.com. If you were not familiar, what is wrong with you? Go to menoforder.com, bookmark it, share it with another young male who needs it, son, nephew, whoever, and tell them, pick a spot and start reading. But Andy has some wonderful articles in there. Many of them are on tantric principles, mindset, hypnosis, etc., etc. I think there's a wealth of information over there on menoforder.com. And also you have your book, the tantricmale.com. I'm looking at it right here, and I'm gonna have to get me a copy. So let me put this in the description box so the people have it, because I don't think I did that. Ooh, damn, I didn't. Oh, damn it. Shit, it still says Olivia. I'm so out of practice, and this is exactly why you have to be consistent. And
that's right. Yeah, shout out to Men of Order, man. I love being a part of that group, and I think it's a great space for men to learn about things that are going to improve their life. You know, really proud of the work that's being done there.
Yeah, very valuable resource. I think when people finally discover all the information on that website, it's gonna explode.
Yeah,
it's gonna absolutely explode. We did a analysis on some of the things that have been, I guess you can say, promoted as masculinity. So like the other male sites, and we did one of them, and it was just like, what was it called? Men's underwear from Fenty. And I'm like, yo, Fenty that's Rihanna's. So like they wanted men wearing like women's panties. So I'm like, is this our competition?
Yeah, they probably got a nice ad spin too.
Yeah, they probably do. So, there's really nothing out there like what we have, at menoforder.com. So I really wanted people to check that out and check out your book. I have adjusted the description box so you guys can go check that out and get a copy of his book, man. I think information
Tantric
like
Male.
Yeah, I think information like that is very important for men to understand, though.
I think it's going to help a lot of people. I'm really pumped to like just get the information to people. I think it's an important piece for the world, because like men, I mean, we have so many distractions pulling for our energy, and this energy of the sexual energy. I mean, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. He put a whole chapter in that book about transmuting sexual energy. And it's extreme. Like he says in there, like when you're younger, you don't really have the tools to learn to do that. That's why when you're around the age 40, I think he said, or age 50, you learn how to do that. And that's when a lot of people really create their best work or put their best things forward into the world, because they've learned to transmute that energy in a way that creates things in the world. And I think men, once they get access to this information and practice it, it's gonna be a real shift for them to learn how to control this energy and move it and transmute it in ways that are gonna make their life a lot better.
Yeah. Napoleon Hill talks a lot about auto-suggestion as well.
He does, yeah.
There's a ton of that in there. Think and Grow Rich was cool, but Outwitting that Devil was fire.
I've been seeing that a lot. Yeah, I'm gonna have to read that book when I get back. I'm gonna get it. Yeah.
I think the story goes Napoleon Hill wrote Outwitting the Devil, and then it never got published because he was like, yeah, I can't put this out. I'm going to get canceled.
I heard that story. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
it was ahead of its time. He's like, we can't wait till I die and then put it out so I don't have to face the repercussions.
Yeah. And then I think what he did was he wrote Think and Grow Rich. And I thought Think and Grow Rich was a more palatable version of Outwitting the Devil.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, you tell somebody read Outwitting the Devil and they may read it and go, oh, what is this heresy, But if you tell them Think and Grow Rich, like, oh, this is cool. I like this book, right? It's
yeah.
Like, now can you try Outwitting the Devil? Some people can handle it. Some people can't.
Nice. Yeah, I'm going to check it out as soon as I get home for sure. I've been seeing a lot of that actually very recently.
It's on audio. You can listen to it. That's how I did. I actually never read it. I listened to the audio version.
Yeah.
It's one of the few books that I found an audio version that I actually wait, no. I think what happened was I think I had a digital version, but then I was like trying to teach it to the kids, and so I was like, wait, it's probably better if I can play this in video. Mm-hmm. And there's a really good audio where like he changes the voices for the devil and whatnot. And I thought that would translate over better for the kids instead of telling them to sit down and read it or reading it to them.
Yeah, yeah.
So then that's when I found the audio. But I do remember having a digital version. Not sure if I finished reading it or not. I read so many books, I can't even. The matter of fact, it was funny as hell. I was talking to Dr. Kaba Kabane, and I was like, I want to really study up on this natives, black natives in America before colonization. What should I read? And he said, I forget the name of the book by David M. Hotep. And I'm like, all right, I got to get that. So then we got off the phone, whatever, and I went to Amazon to go order the book. And I looked, and I'm like, wait, I have this book. Right? So then I go, and I'm like, I ran, and I went and found the book. I opened the book and it's highlights in the book. And I'm like, wait, I read this book already.
Nice.
I'm like, oh, that's why I know all this information.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's what I've got so many books. Like, that's one thing I can't get rid of, my books and my albums. Yeah. I keep those. I move a lot just so I can get rid of all my stuff. But I just carry the books around with me everywhere. And I buy a book and I've already got the book at home. Yeah. I haven't read it, but I've got it again,
Yeah.
Yeah, books are amazing tools, man.
Yeah.
One question I wanted to ask you, you brought up race. I had to shut the door because they had to making some noise. What is your idea of what is the best way moving forward for us to to not let this be such a massive issue, massive point of contention? What are the solutions?
Well,
especially in America.
Well, there's micro and macro, right? So it's what can you do on the ground when dealing with another person? And to me, I don't think that's an issue, right? I think that, we go out on the internet and we see all these race issues, and then you go to the supermarket and everybody's just fine.
Right. Yeah.
And when you read Thaddeus Russell's work, you see the same thing where it's like, he paints a different picture of this period where, black folks had it bad, but you had underground bars or bars where black and white folk was getting along and dancing. Mm-hmm. And, he made a great, point where he said, if white people truly hated black people, you wouldn't need to create laws to separate them. That's a good point, right? So at some point, somebody had to create a law because white people was hanging out with black people, and but I think human nature, again, going back to the whole relativity have a fascination with foreign concepts and foreign things. So we have a natural desire to explore things outside of our culture. So you'll have black folks who will love Gucci, white folks will love hip hop, right? So there'll be this trade-off of different cultures, and I think that's very natural. Um, the biggest problem I think with the race conversation on the internet are the race pimps.
Right.
That's the biggest problem.
Yeah, it's a formidable operation, you know? It's like it's always in your face, constantly thinking about like seeing, you know, all these things, like especially the mainstream media too, and like the Democratic Party. I mean, how do we battle that?
Become Hotep.
Damn.
That's the Hotep Nation revolution, man. It's a revolution of the mind. You know, the way the mind works, you could tell it a million things until it sees it. It's not really the truth. So when people see some of the things that we do at Hotep Nation, it's sort of mind shattering. It's awe inspiring. You know, for example, you know, in order to do really well on the internet as a streamer, you got to pick a side. And the more biased you are, the better you'll do. So you'll see people with these hardcore political opinions that lean either left or right, and they have these huge audiences because, well, it's just radically one way, right?
Right.
And then you have people like the Hoteps who are calling things honestly straight down the middle. And what you find is we don't have a high adoption rate, but we have a high retention rate where people come and they're like, wait, this is where I need to be at. Also, I think there's I really believe this is why I'm blackballed from black radio in New York radio specifically. And I think it's because, you know, if there's A, B, and C, but people are always presented A and B, but C is superior, they'll always pick between A and B. And I think the Hoteps are like that C option. And I think that if we appeared on some of these shows, people wouldn't go back to A and B. It would render some of these people will start looking at their radio hosts like, yo, why you ain't talking like this?
Yeah.
Why don't you sound like this? Sounds like sense, right? But I think a lot of it comes back to being willing to be objective. To me, that's a natural strength where I have this ability to be completely objective, both in how I view myself and how I view the world. So, you know, I think that's something that has to be exercised.
Yeah.
Right. Objectivity.
Yes. Yeah. And being open to other viewpoints, other conversations, and not like being so dogmatic and whatever your belief may be, one way or the other. I think, that's good.
Yeah. So I think Hotep Nation's the way. And I'm not saying that based upon my own conclusions. I'm basing that based upon what people are telling me. This is what the people say. Yo, Hotep is the way. Hotep is the way.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
I mean, that's really what drew me to you guys too, because you know, early on in the Trump's administration, it was just there's so much racial talk, you know, about like the MAGA hat and everything. And I just was like looking for some other avenues, you know. I knew there was some like other people like speaking sensibly, you know, and that's where I found you guys. Yeah,
you find that other sensible part and you're like, wait, okay, these guys are actually, I've had people say that, like, yo, I'm looking at all the stuff out here, and either you get somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about, or you get somebody that's dogmatic and biased, and then it's like, then they find the Hoteps and they're like, okay, this is what I was looking for. Somebody who actually just calls it straight, no matter what the topic is, and then tells you both sides, right? Like, I'll tell you the leftist view, and I'll tell you, and then me and Uncle Hotep will argue about it, but at the end of the day, it's on you, right? Like, I don't want to tell you what to think. I just want you to think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But also, you know, I have this ability to not judge people and take them for where they're at. I think just to clarify, we all judge people, and we just do, right? It's something you can't really help, but I I don't react. Like, for example, I had a conversation with an actress, and she's just telling me things about herself, and I'm like, you ever did coke before? And she's like, yeah, and my reaction isn't like, oh, you're canceled and I'm so disappointed in you. It's more like, really, you did? Tell me about this experience. Was it 2 lines, 3 lines? I'm just like more curious than judgmental of anything, right? Because
right, yeah.
And I think that's a big key to all of this too, is you can't judge, you can't be very judgy and react on that judgment and say, oh, because you think like this, now you're canceled, or now I can't get along with you. And it's just like, nah, like, you got to be malleable.
Yeah. I've had to fight that with the last 3 years with a lot of the people who have 5 masks on while they're running outside and like I'm trying not to be triggered by this,
I'm definitely judging their asses.
That's been a learning lesson for me to not be, so judgy. And sometimes I just fail miserably. I'm just like, try to eliminate that from my experience, but that's all part of humanity. And I respect that. I love that. And that's an important point I think you made about streamers and content influencers, about like, I mean, it's a consistent thread to pick one side, and like go all in on that. You want to alienate people because then you have true fans rather than just being in the middle where nobody really knows what you're saying or who you are. And so that after you see some success going one way or the other, then you like kind of feed that machine, that beast, and you can't be scared to say something that you think is relevant or true, because it may, turn your fans off or anger your fans. So it becomes like a self-fulfilling cycle.
Yeah. What do you call it? The feedback loop.
Yeah.
And then your fans control you.
Right.
Yeah. It's a very dangerous place to be.
Yeah. And plus once you create that system, that's how you're making your living. So
right.
That can be, it's like having a boss.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. You got to be careful what you do out here, man. You become a slave to that.
One thing I found you guys are doing that's amazing is, and this is the way the world is now, is talking in parables or encoded language, and to avoid
censorship.
Censorship. Keep your platforms open, because once you're censored, you can't communicate with all these people in an effective way. So that's where we're at now, and like I've noticed y'all doing that with skill and with humor.
Yeah, I had a former military guy reach out to me, and he had got suspended on Twitter, and he's like, you're one of the few people that never got suspended. How'd you do it? And I'm like, yeah, I spoke in code. He was like, oh, you punked out. I'm like, you call it punking out, I call it strategic. And he didn't have a response for that. He was just like, whatever. And I was like, hey, I don't know. I just feel like if you understand how the system works, then you would know how to move, right? Like, did you read 1984? If you read 1984, they were talking in code.
It's always been this way. Like all throughout history, it's been code talkers, like sharing information. Because and now with AI and the systems in place, it's just a different game, but it's the same theme.
Yeah. The Masons have a cipher. They have a secret code that they speak in, and even you'll find Freemason text, and you'll look at it, and it'll have some letters, but you won't be able to read it because you'll need the cipher to decipher it, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people that use coded language, and to me, that's what crypto was about. Shout out to Syscoin. I'm involved with the Syscoin project. Great new announcements coming soon. But that was the big thing for me with crypto. It's like, it's not just about cryptocurrency, it's about crypto language. How are you encrypting your language to still speak to people? Right. And the other thing is, I thought it was very amateur hour to use the language of big pharma. Right.
Yeah.
Like, to use their language, it's like, how do you say this? It's cultural appropriation.
Yeah,
Right.
and it's also like accepting their reality that they're giving to everyone. They're crafting the conversation pieces if you're using those languages. Yeah.
Right. If you're using their words, you're technically on their playing field.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But if I'm like, oh, okay, we can't use those words because those are your words, I can respect that.
Yeah.
Because I can use what it's really called. It's called inoculation.
Yeah.
Now, there's a difference between being indoctrinated and educated, right? So I know through my studies it's called inoculation. That word's not banned.
Right. And it doesn't show up on
the algorithm.
The censor algo, yeah.
Right? So, anyway.
Yeah, no, I think it's important to think in different dimensions, and when you're communicating, especially on these platforms and sharing information. And like I was also thinking, like, if you haven't been banned yet, you're not like going hard enough. But the other side of that thought is you can't do anything when you're there. I mean, unless you're like Alex Jones and you've built this spaceship, you're pretty much out there. Like, there's been people banned off Twitter I haven't heard from in a couple of years. I don't know where they are. You can't communicate with people anymore. So that's always the way it's been, and that's probably always the way it's going to be. We're going to have to just like spread the code language around and give information that way.
Chad said, branding yourself as a work in progress helps. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's just, honesty, right? Like, people ask me about myself. I try to preface and say, this is what I am right now. Who knows what I'm going to be in 10 years? Who knows what I'm going to believe? I went from anarchist to statist to anarchist back to statist. Right? So I might be anarchist in the next few years, right?
And the world changes too. Like I feel like I've kept a lot of the same principles and stuff, but the way the political landscape has shifted around and a lot of the morals have changed, I feel like the world is moving around me and putting me in places that I wouldn't have been called some things, like a few years ago. But I haven't really changed my thinking on a certain thing. It's just the world has changed around it.
The world has changed so much, yeah. Right now I'm reading Michael Malle's The White Pill. And the more I read it, the more of a communist I become.
Okay.
I've always had a fascination with communism since I started studying it, 6 years ago or whatever. And I like communism. I got to be honest with you. It's very appealing.
The Hotep communist nation coming
soon.
Yeah, those ideas the ideas are great. Like, they're just very humanitarian. You want to just like help take care of people and make sure everybody can live a decent life, but that's rarely,
but
not ever.
I see them as being parallel to nationalistic. Every great revolution sounds like communism to me, right? This overthrow of power, violence by any means necessary. But the fascinating part about communism to me is the desire for sweeping overnight change. The truth is, change happens gradually over time. But if you wanted to have sweeping overnight change, communism gets it right, and where they just want control of everything. And so when people ask me, like, hey, Hotep, what would you do? And I'm like, I would have a very communistic approach. Like, if you're asking me what I would do to fix things right now, you would need to take control of everything, right? Like, if media is the problem, then like maybe I need to go in and seize everybody at CNN, right? Like, if people are race pimping, maybe I need to seize the people that are race pimping, right? Like,
Yeah, you're reminding me of Justin Trudeau talking about China, how much he loves China. I mean, if you're a man in power, yeah, like that's how things get done. If you can just make a decision and get them done, that's what everybody who wants power would want, you know. But yeah, that doesn't go well.
It doesn't go
History
well.
shows us.
Yeah.
And this system is like has its major flaws, but those systems in place that it's gradual are sort of like a safe fail safe in a way, like, because if someone wants to go in a direction, like it goes so slow that it allows someone who's taken us in a very bad direction that we can recover from it.
So, which leads me to our next point. Like, are we talking about a theocratic state, right? Because the issue I believe that we're having as a nation today is very much rooted in morals and virtue and values. And the place you're, most likely going to get these things is from some sort of spiritual or religious system.
Right.
So you would need a religious overhaul, right? Do you think that the theocratic method is best to restore things? Like,
I think we just need a tantric president, and then I'll just take over from there.
What, are you gonna hypnotize everybody into being better?
Yeah, exactly. No, I think the most important element I think of the religious connection to government is the idea that we get our rights from God.
Okay.
Because if you get your rights from a man, then they have that power over you, you know, and that's part of our Constitution. I think, like, just that those rights are innate to us.
Yeah.
Just by being human beings, because we get them from God. I think that's an important part. And there's a lot of positive religious, like, I've kind of been like, I started out as a Christian, but then I went away from it. But I am just at a point where I just try to find the positive things in each of these organizations and the things they can teach that make life better. And in a lot of ways, some of those teachings that are within Christianity are really good to hold a society together in a positive way. Like, it can be used for negative reasons and purposes, but like the idea of God, I think, is important for a society, one way or the other.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
As a source, especially of our rights.
But I think you hit the nail on the head earlier where you said hypnotist, right? After I'm done joking about being a communist dictator, I'm thinking about it like you, right? Like, if I became the new leader, I would lead a marketing campaign that would rival whatever it is big tech is putting out, whatever it is that media is putting out through Hollywood or whatever. I would lead a new marketing campaign and if I were president of the United States, I'd put a lot of money into programming. And I know that's happening now. Yeah. It's probably not the right programming.
Right.
But I believe that's
programming people's minds, or like coding? No,
programming people's minds.
Okay.
Right? Like,
yeah.
Like nuclear family stories.
Yeah.
Black and white people getting along without, having to do miscegenation, right?
Like positive propaganda.
Positive propaganda. There you go. Yeah. That's how I believe. Every time the show comes on, these people are praying.
Yeah.
The children meditate, right? Just these little hints at what life should be like.
Right.
It's just this mock family, because that's how America became what it is. Leave It to Beaver, the Cosbys, all these different little mock families give you insight into how you should probably run yours.
Right.
So that's how I'd run mine.
I think that's a really powerful question to ask yourself, is if you know, everyone started following you today, like, where would you lead them? You know, where would you create? What if you became the king of the world? What would you do? You know, where would you lead people? And that's an important question to ask. You always ask yourself where you're going, and how are you living your life in accordance with those ideas and principles?
Yes. Purity of thought, I call it.
Like,
Right.
you can be your own communist leader.
Yeah.
Inside your mind. Where are you going to lead people? You know.
Yeah. But you know, it's that whole saying where they say, "You are who you are when nobody's watching."
Yeah.
So it's like, what are those thoughts you're having, and can you have purity of thought? I think it's something that people should practice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cassius came. He said, "You won't like it when we take all your plantain. Y'all not touching my plantain. Y'all leave my plantain alone right now."
Yeah, there's gonna be plenty of plantains in
the what, down there in Mexico?
In the Hotep communist state.
Oh, absolutely. When I have planted trees everywhere. Renee Vogel, you're absolutely right, man. It's definitely the concept for my kids' YouTube channel. Absolutely. Tune in and drop out. Appreciate you. He said there is not enough suffering in this country at this point to convince the masses they have no future under the current system. Now that's true. I believe that wholeheartedly. I said that on the whose stream was it I was on recently, and I'm like, you know, the really only thing that's going to make this world better is some sort of cataclysmic event or some alien takeover. Then people will start acting right. You know, but again, that's that whole relativity. You know, it's us versus them. Like, I feel like humans always need that us versus them dynamic in order to operate in this world, based upon their lower nature. I think based upon a higher nature, they find a oneness, so they don't need that relativity. Relativity is already inside the one. But you know, it's you know, here's my issue with the whole, the world's turning into shit. I'm like, I study history. The world's always been shit.
Yeah, that's nothing new under the sun, you know.
This shit ain't new.
Everybody says that every so often. They say the same thing. Oh my God, the world is going to shit. You know, they've been saying that for thousands of years.
Every time I study a new civilization, I'm just like, oh, this looks like America. Oh, this looks like America. Oh, this. I'm like, all right, this ain't new. Let me just mind my business and just go about my day.
Well, everybody that's alive right now has grown up in the biggest, most powerful empire of the modern world, you know, and
you think
it's not going to always be that way. Yeah, I think the American empire, like militarily and economically, has been the biggest powerhouse in the modern world. I don't know, like, you know, a few civilizations back, like those players and how like relative they were, but like modern technology and things, yeah, I think but it's not going to always be like that. We're not going to be like England was the biggest power in the world, you know, and owned land all over the world, and now look at them. All they've got is like Zuby. It's been a fall from grace. Quick.
Oh, shit. That's hilarious. Oh my God.
So America, like, all we're gonna have at some point is like Hotep Nation.
I said that's all it's gonna be standing, man.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Tantric Male.
The relationship between America and England is it's an interesting one. I'm not too sure about how powerful America's military might is. I'm not too convinced. A part of me wants to believe it's the Wizard of Oz, where the threat is more fearful than the execution. That's an old chess saying. The threat is more fearful than the execution.
Yeah.
I think that there's more to the American military might than the military might, such as the people who get to make decisions for the military might. Right? Like, I see that as having more power than the military itself. The military just happens to be that arm. And then, you know, the fact that they can call on the military, right? But even to turn that against the American people, right, is that's why I separate like American from it all, because I'm like, is it American? Is our military American, or is this somebody else's toy that we believe is American?
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. Yeah, it's American in the sense it has a flag on the side of the uniform.
Right.
But the people who are actually making the strategic decisions are probably more like a corporatocracy.
Yeah.
You know, like in meeting in those dark rooms that we talked about earlier.
Yeah. With the lizard men from the other civilizations. Yeah. Yeah. Chad said, people want to rule the world, but their life is a mess. Yeah. Yeah. I had a conversation with a young man. Well, yeah, you know, I want to help people. I'm like, you can't even pay your bills, bro. Shut up.
Right.
Figure out how to pay your bills and you'll be able to save the world.
It's a basic foundation, you know, like handle your own business through quickly. You don't need a lot, man. Just to, you know, be able to shut the door, lock it, have space, have your bills paid. Then you can start thinking about solving some problems.
Yeah, like, you know, you don't even get along with your own mama. How you going to save the world? Figure out how to save the relationship with your mama before you try to save the world.
Yeah.
Figure out how to mend relationships between two people in your family before you try to mend the relationships of the world. Because in learning in doing that, you learn how to heal the world, and you can actually teach it. You need real life practical experience.
It's going to be whatever you do in the world is going to be a reflection of your own environment, your own home, the things you create closest. That's why I was like really focused on just creating my reality, you know, like seeing where you want to lead people and then creating that in the world as where you are right now, and then start building around you, you know, and reaching the people who are ready for that message.
Yeah.
Like I used to think that it was going to save the world. You're not going to save the world. But you can make a huge influence and impact in the world. Like the world doesn't need saving, really, you know. The world, life is going to continue, you know, humanity may or may not continue, but it doesn't matter. Life will continue, energy exists, the universe exists, and will continue to move. So just do your best while you're here with what you got, and think about that message, that how you would influence the world.
Somebody said, if the American military is so strong, name the conflict or war we have last won.
We don't want to win wars.
Yeah.
We want to keep wars going because it's an amazing business model.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly it.
Well, that's why we have wars on terror, things that you can't win. The wars on ideas.
What do you think about the whole
non-winnable?
Well, we probably can't talk about that here, but the war across the pond.
Same thing,
right? Yeah.
Yeah. It could have been squashed a while ago.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's billions of dollars going everywhere. Nobody really knows where they're going, you know? I mean, there's so much shady stuff going on there. I just hope it like somehow comes to some resolution before it gets way too out of control. Because it has the pieces to become that, it feels like.
I think that Ukraine, I just said it anyway. I think that there's going to be a huge rise in Nazism in the next 10 to 20 years in that region. Then we're going to obliterate it and turn it into a new civilization.
Yeah.
And then another group of people is going to come and migrate and settle that area. Because we're basically arming Al-Qaeda all over again. So I see that as, we'll arm the enemy, then we'll destroy the enemy because Nazis are bad. And then occupy.
Yeah.
That's what I
think.
think.
A new satellite
Yeah.
civilization. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a satellite civilization of one of the world powers. Yeah.
And yeah, that seems to be one of our foreign policy strategic methods.
Yeah. The Tantric Male, tantricmale.com. Andy Eversole's book is out now.
Let's go.
Make sure y'all go cop that. Support the homie. One of these days, I'm going to get with you and you're going to teach me this hypnosis thing. And I'm going to come out here and start hypnotizing the world for the better.
Yeah, I think you're already doing that, man. You have a lot of hypnotic elements that you already work with. And a lot of it's just influence and persuasion, and communication. Like, you're a great communicator. And like you were saying earlier, you let people sort of, in your interviews, a lot of times say what they're going to say without judging them, and like ask questions, and then sort of like the Socratic method, like kind of they, let themselves be exposed in a way. But your communication style is very hypnotic and very effective.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I think you're already taking some of those elements with you.
Thank you. Hopefully I can hypnotize people into enjoying some new master focus, 100% herbal nootropic for focus, memory, concentration, energy, mood, flow, something called a flow state. We're going to get into that. Also, you get a discount. I'll reduce your membership fee if you become a client. If you become a monthly subscriber, I'll reduce your membership fee. Chad and Cassius, please remind me to go in and reduce you guys' fee because you guys are homies. But I will. All you got to do is, after you make your purchase, go ahead and email us with the form on the site, or respond to your confirmation for your membership, and I'll go and I'll manually reduce it to like $49 a month. And just mention that you watch my YouTube channel. My name is
Hotep, you're a genius. HotepJesus.com.
I'll see y'all next time, man.
Yeah.
Hotep and Bill.
Didn't listen to me then, I bet they feel me now. Don't let me lose it. The booth not about to prove it. I set goals and pursue it. You the best to never do it. Invest my money, talking fluent, stupid, ducking the Judas. It broke my heart, but open my eyes. You have no honor, I have no choice. Chasing the commas till I'm a goner. Been left for a minute. On my way home, mama, I promise, got caught up in it. Damn. Everybody eats when I'm batting at the plate. First, second, third, home, $1 million bet.